الله أكبر الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Islam, boy.
Islam.
How's everybody's holy day?
Oh, it's well.
Praise Allah. I'll be moving around a little bit.
Oh, Islam.
Arise, giving all praise to Allah, highest honors to His holy and divine prophet, Prophet Noble True Ali. Extend those honors to the standard, to the moral standard, the red flag with the green 5-pointed star in the center, each point representing love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I extend those honors to the harbinger, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who indeed stirred up and warned the nations. I extend those honors to the office of the Grand Governor, the Lieutenant Grand Governor, the Sheikh staff, the admin staff. Extend those honors to the L's and Bays, the acting at the vanguard, who keep the peace. Extend those honors to man, because when man honors man, he honors our Father God, Allah. Islam?
Islam.
Islam. Today I wanted to talk in brief about a method, right? A process, so to speak. We talk often about this Moorish divine national movement and the method or the means by which we get that we solve our problems. Our prophet said that man is sure to find himself where he can solve his problems best. Islam. So we have we're in a particular predicament where we have a situation or a condition that we struggle with that we recognize, but many of our people don't recognize. Islam. And so we have to be able to teach our people those things that are necessary to make them better citizens. And we know that one of those methods that our prophet brought was by way of nationality and divine creed. Islam. So what year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
Islam. So when he founded the Moorish Science Temple of America, he introduced what in the foundation of his name? What did he bring us?
Nationality.
Brought us nationality, but in this name, what specifically how did he introduce this doctrine to us?
According to science.
According to science. Islam? What does science mean?
To know.
To seek or study your science. Can't you? No. All right. So he brought us a method, and in essence, he was, in his attempt, was to produce a nation of scientists, if I may, in a sense.
That's right.
So if we are to be scientists, then we must have a process or a method by which we solve problems. Islam? So what are some methods by which scientists solve problems?
State the problem.
State the problem? Yeah, we got to state the problem. We got to know what the problem is. State it. But there's something that's called the scientific process.
Scientific method, yeah.
Scientific method. Right? So we have a method, we have a process. What's the definition of a method? So we have method.
A procedure, process.
Exactly. So a particular form of procedure for accomplishing or approaching something, especially a systematic or established one. So we have Moorish Science Temple of America was established or founded in 1913, and what was the reason that the Moorish Science Temple of America was founded? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. So we have a particular form of procedure for accomplishing or approaching something, especially a systematic or established one. So here we have that in the definition, right? All right, so one of the first steps in the scientific method is to ask the question. So we have to ask the question. What is the question?
Who am I?
Who am I? Good question. So when we ask a question, it says that the scientific method starts when you ask the question, about something that you observe. It has how, what, when, who, which, why, or where. It says for a science project, some teachers require that the question be something you can measure, preferably with a number. All right. So what is this? So we have X in question. I'll put who am I? So he said, how, what, when, who, which, why, and where. Which. Kind of wing it a little bit, so feel free to help me out. All right, so in the Moorish literature, and the voice of the prophet talks about already said in just a moment. It says, if the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish National Divine Movement, right? So we have, why do we have the Negro problem? Why does the Negro problem exist? How does it exist?
Are you posing the question to us?
I am.
Okay.
But I'll.
Okay.
That's better, right? So through some of the disobedience, right? We got the Negro problem.
Yeah.
So what? Actually, these are the same. These will be the same answer. So we have how, through sin and disobedience, what? We got the Negro problem. When?
1774.
1774.
Yeah.
Right. Who?
Moorish man.
Which Moors? Moorish American.
Moorish man.
Why?
Could be straight after the gods of Europe.
Working like
Straight out the gods of Europe? Where?
North America.
Moorish Americans are descendants of ancient Moabites who were happy to be northwest and southwest shore of Africa. Right? And we have, other examples of how, the Moorish Empire extended all the way up until the North, South, and Central Americas as well. So,
West Africa.
Western Hemisphere.
Where we stood.
True. Wherever we are, right? All right, so we have, so after the question is asked, we have to do background research, right? And so in this background research, what are we studying to be able to solve this problem? Anybody?
What do we study?
Mm-hmm.
The literature of the Prophet of Ali.
Literature of the Prophet Noble Ali. We study the history of our forefathers, right? Most importantly, what we study? We study ourselves, right? So in chapter 3 of the Moorish Science Temple, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America says, chapter 3, verse 14, instruction 14, if you were to ask me what to study, I would say yourselves. And you will have studied them, and then would ask me what to study next, I would reply, yourselves. Right? He who knows well his lower self knows the illusions of the world, knows of the things that will pass away, and he who knows his higher self knows Allah, knows well the things that cannot pass away. So we're studying self, we're studying our forefathers, because to study our forefathers, we are studying ourselves. So, then we construct a hypothesis. What is the hypothesis? An educated guess. So a hypothesis is an educated guess about how things work. It is an attempt to answer your question with an explanation that can be tested. A good hypothesis allows you to then make a prediction. If I do this, then this will happen, right? So what are we doing to make whatever that we see, to happen? What is it that we're doing?
Testing it?
Testing it?
Or putting it to the test?
I know I'm in places.
Work.
Background research. Construct hypothesis. Right. So, what is it that we're doing? Or, well, let me do this. What is the hypothesis? What are we seeking to accomplish?
No, I'm just going.
Hypothesis from background research that we're the mothers and fathers of civilization.
So the hypothesis would be to find out if we're the mothers and fathers of civilization.
We're asking, are we doing the background research is one step, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
And then you construct the hypothesis, right?
right. So I'm saying my hypothesis is that we are the mothers and fathers of civilization.
Arise, giving our praise to Father God Allah, and the highest of honors to His Prophet Nabi Ali.
Islam.
I would say that the hypothesis, in my understanding, would be if we apply a particular process, then this should be able to redeem those fallen Asiatics and uplift fallen humanity.
Islam. Right. And so we're constructing a hypothesis. We're seeking out the educated guess of what the result will be by studying ourselves, right? By studying our forefathers and applying that, and applying the science that was brought to us by our prophet, right? So then, what would, in essence, what would the hypothesis be? What is the result? There's really no real answer, but I'll say this. This is what.
While you're doing that,
It's like, go ahead.
once again, I rise, giving all praise to Allah, the highest of honors, so you probably know who you are, lead. So okay, hypothesis is an educated guess. A lot of our people don't make it past the ask the question or state the problem stage. If you ask someone what the problem is, how many would say the Negro problem or the black problem, and then once you get to doing background research and gathering information, the research gathered would not even be based on the Negro problem. It would be based on how can black people rise or whatever, or you may ask some and about knowledge of self or whatever, and get a whole different hypothesis. So it's very important that we identify, to your point, that we ask the right question and identify what the problem is.
Islam. And caveat emptor, he said that Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. Right? So the hypothesis is we're going to a destiny that is not uncertain nor unknown.
Okay.
Right? So I'll leave it there. And I know it's sometimes vague to some people, but we know what that destiny is. So we have to test that hypothesis, right? We test the hypothesis by doing an experiment. So your experiment tests whether your prediction is accurate and thus your hypothesis is supported or not, is supported or not. It is important for your experiment to be a fair test. You conduct a fair test by making sure that you change only one factor at a time while keeping all other conditions the same. You should also repeat your experiments several times to make sure that the first results weren't just an accident. All right? So what are the conditions?
Economic slavery.
Economic slavery? What else?
Straining after foreign gods.
Being subject to abuses that citizens care to bestow upon us. Condition.
Well,
Not being ourselves.
so these are the conditions. So if after the hypothesis we put the program to the test, and we're still straining out the gods of Europe, right? We're still in economic slavery. We're still subject to the abuses and misuses of the other citizens, and we're not being ourselves. Then what has to happen at this point? We're testing the experiment, right? And we determine that the procedure is not working.
Okay, so yeah, at this point, I mean, I can say what what we've done in this room. We've so all of the other conditions being the same. So that's like the control, right? So you have a variable, which the thing that is what changes. And for us, what changed was our nationality. And that, so we did that, and we tested a lot of us when we proclaimed our nationality. We're testing the hypothesis to see what result we got. That one variable. How did that one variable change the conditions? School. They don't like this. Wonderful.
So we're at this point where we're testing the experiment. Now, if the procedure is not working, then we have to troubleshoot the procedure. Why is it not working? We just mentioned some things earlier, not being ourselves, straining out the gods of Europe, right? Economic slavery, right? So you troubleshoot the procedure. You carefully check the steps, check all steps, and you set up again. So at this point, we go back up to testing that experiment because we have our hypothesis. We have to determine, we have to troubleshoot, then we have to test the experiment again. Then work it out again, and we determine whatever it is that's not working. We have to change that part, but leave all the other conditions the same. All right. So we change the condition, the condition that's causing us to stumble and not move forward, right? And leave all the other conditions the same because we don't see the problem with those conditions yet, or at all, right? Now, if the procedure is working, we continue on down and we analyze the data. Analyze data and draw conclusions. Now, when we analyze the data and draw conclusions, Well, I said, let me go back to when you test the hypothesis by doing an experiment. We have an example in chapter 11 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Instruction 13. Chapter 12. Chapter 12, instruction 13.
Still applied.
So?
But the last one still applied.
It does. But this one's particular. So this is when the miner was talking to the toilet, right? He told the toilet that he was, toiling in the scanty way, right? So he said that instruction 13, Jesus spake a parable. He said, a certain man possessed a field. The soil was hard and poor. By constant toil, he scarcely could provide food to keep his family from want. One day, a miner who could see beneath the soil, in passing on his way, saw this poor man in his unfruitful field. He called the weary toiler and said, my brother, you know not that just below the surface of your barren field, rich treasures lie concealed. You ply and sow and reap in a scanty way, and day by day you tread upon a mine of gold and precious stones. This wealth lies not upon the surface of the ground, but if you will dig away the rocky soil and delve down deep into the earth, you need no longer till the soil for knowledge. All right. So he says that the man believed him, because he's the miner. So he's one that surely, knows because he has experience. Islam. So when we look at this process, this procedure, right? When we determine it's not working, we have to they said that what's insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? And so insanity is toiling in a scanty way, right? So when we continue to do the same things over and over, trying to, solve the problem, solve our conditions, then we're toiling in a scanty way. And we have to troubleshoot that problem so that we can test that experiment again and change the conditions, right? So in the procedure, when the procedure is working, then we can analyze that data, right? It says, analyze your data and draw conclusions. Once your experiment is complete, you collect your measurements and analyze them to see if they support your hypothesis or not, right? So at this point, something just came to mind. It says, once your experiment is complete, you collect your measurements and analyze them to see if they support your hypothesis or not. At this point, we determine whether, this is where we know what we start to be what we know. So it says, if man would know, he must himself be what he knows, right? So Acts 6, it says, that we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed that they may know, right? We are teaching with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed that they may know, right? But if they don't know, then we have to continue to go around in cycles, troubleshoot until we actually know. Till we actually start to be what we know. Islam? All right, so are we being what we know? It says, scientists often find that their predictions were not accurate and their hypothesis was not supported. And in such cases, they will communicate the results of their experiment and then go back and construct a new hypothesis and prediction based on the information they learned during their experiment. This starts much of the process of the scientific method over again. Even if they find that their hypothesis was supported, they may want to test it again in a new way, right? So this is, that part where we have experience now, and we start to learn from our experiences, right? Everybody, I talk to in my groups at work, I talk to my guys about, all of our past experiences are learning tools, right? And so we must leave the past in the past, but we can't leave the portions that we were supposed to learn from behind. We have to bring those into our current day so that we can troubleshoot those experiences to determine how we move forward. Islam. So we have experiences that we've going on through this movement, right? The day we proclaimed our nationality, that started our entire experience of being Moorish Americans. And things that didn't work for us, we have to go back to this, as the Grand Governor said, and learn how to be this. Islam. So this is when you be what you know. All right. So it says, analyze and draw conclusions. So after we analyze and draw conclusions, if the results align with the hypothesis, then we can continue on and communicate the results, right? So, communicate. Chapter 26, verse 2. Chapter 26, instruction 2 says, well, I'll go back to, I'll start with chapter 1, instruction 1. The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and He appointed to everyone his portion in what measure seemeth good unto himself. Hath He endowed thee with wisdom? Hath He enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Communicated to the ignorant for their instructions. Communicated to the wise for thine own improvement, right? So after the results are aligned with the hypothesis, we have to communicate. Communicate the results. And this may mean communicating with the results with our other Moorish family, to talk about what worked for us, right? May be able to assist you all, right? Or if the results align partially or not at all, so if the results align partially or not at all with the hypothesis, so we go all the way back to the hypothesis itself. Then we take the experimental data becomes background research, right? So we already have the experience. So we got the question is already asked, and the background research is already there. So the experimental data becomes background research for a new or future project. It says ask new question, form new hypothesis, experiment again. So we do all that, right? And things are working for us, even if things are working well, right? And we got results that, they align, things are, moving in a positive way, but the results don't align with the hypothesis. Then we have to go all the way back and basically reconstruct the hypothesis itself so that it can align with the results. Islam? Make sense? Islam. So that's one thing I wanted to share, the scientific process. This is the Moorish Science Temple of America. So if this is the Moorish Science Temple of America, then there must be a method, right, to how we solve problems. Right? The Prophet gives us, the solution, but we must apply the solution. He didn't give us particularly, step by step on how to, solve particular problems per se. But we're supposed to be scientists, and we're supposed to know how to solve those problems. Islam?
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah.